I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Brittany.
It's always a pleasure to have you. As you reported, this year the Trump organization will potentially be relying on foreign labor. What can you tell us?
Sure. It's this year is following the trend for the Trumps. We just saw found a document on the Department of Labor's website that Trump's winery in Charlottesville, Virginia, is looking to hire 35 foreign workers this year to come in and prune and pick grapes. And it's the same amount as last year. It is legal to do this. You're only supposed to do it, though, if there are not enough U.S. workers who are able, willing, and qualified and available to do it. Which is also interesting because it's they've requested basically the same amount every year. So I guess just like every year they're just not able to find the same exact amount of qualified workers.
Is that a fair argument? Is there anyone unemployed in Virginia that could do this job?
Well, sure, but it's also unemployment there is 3%. The job pays $14.16 an hour, and they are certainly not alone in this. There are plenty of other businesses, both agricultural and non, that take advantage of this rule to bring in foreign workers to provide cheaper labor. What stands out with the Trumps is that the owner of this business very famously has gone on several anti-immigration tirades. So that's why this one really stands out.
Let's flash back to the Trump presidency. Can you give us a brief history of Trump and his comments toward immigration in general, as well as foreign workers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the most notable one is what he said about Mexicans. But I believe there were some Mexican activists sued him. There were some also Chinese activists who sued him over his use of derogatory language. Build the wall, all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time, he wants to build the wall. MarALago is bringing in foreign workers. Trump Palm Beach, his golf course down there, is bringing in foreign workers. And what really stands out is that during some of his speeches, he would kind of acknowledge this, where he would go on this anti-immigrant rap saying, like, jobs for Americans, but except if they're coming in to do short-term work over the summer. And, everybody would be in the audience would be like, yes, no more immigrants. And then let's keep American jobs for Americans. And then he'd kind of lose them when he carved out this little exception for himself.
When he said that caveat, was that specifically because he was doing that himself?
It's got to be. I mean, it's Donald Trump. I can't believe he did it because he cared about anybody else. But yeah, I mean, he certainly knows that's what his business has been relying on. The records online go back to 2018, and every single year, Trump Winery has been looking for foreign labor to come in.
Why are they looking for foreign labor opposed to American workers, especially someone who has repeatedly said for years, I want to put America first?
Yes. Trying to get cheap labor who will come in and work 40 hours, at least in the fields, from 7 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for $14 an hour, and are not looking for a full-time permanent position. This job ends these jobs run from February to October. It's just easier to do it. And again, they're not alone with this. This is certainly the agricultural industry relies on this kind of labor.
Throughout his presidency, like we've been talking about, Trump vowed to put American workers first. So what does this move say about that argument?
Well, it just overall stands out about the hypocrisy of, being American workers first. But, well, if you can save a few bucks and rely on temporary foreign workers instead, then maybe it makes more sense.
When he would say this during his rallies, and you said that the crowd would kind of lose him, is this something that would turn off a Trump voter?
Yeah, I think so. He certainly turned off that's just based on the audience's responses. Nobody gave him a standing ovation for carving out, oh, it's okay for foreign workers to come in if it's only, part-time seasonal help, either at my vineyard or my club. But people don't hold Donald Trump to following through on what he said. They're fine with him having a double standard. That deal has been made years ago.
Why do you think voters are okay with that? But it seems like they don't really give any other politician that same chance.
Yeah. The best analysis I heard of it was from Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live, that much criticized opening monologue that he did. And, the media attention was focused on other parts of what he said, but Chappelle got up there and said, I think people who famously lives in like rural Ohio got up and said, people like Trump because he gives them the truth. And that's fine with that, And the moment that stood out to Chappelle was at one of the debates with Hillary where, she was deriding him for not paying taxes. And his response was, that's the system. If you don't want it, change it. But your donors like the system like this, and that's why you're not going to change it. And he was spot on. So the thought is a lot of people just like the fact that he's willing to speak the truth in some ways that other people aren't.
And Trump organizations, as you said, have been hiring foreign workers temporarily throughout his presidency. So has he ever publicly commented on this?
Not that I can recall. It has been an issue. The winery isn't as big a deal in terms of security. Trump doesn't go there. He famously doesn't drink. But, obviously they're relying on 91 short-term temporary foreign workers at MarALago, as we reported earlier. That's problematic because it's, where he stored classified documents. So, foreign countries would be derelict in their responsibilities to their citizens if they weren't trying to get workers in there at, spies in there to pretend to be workers at MarALago.
Do you think that actually happened, or is that just a potential?
I have no evidence that it did. It just seems, between all of his businesses and knowing what goes on there, looking back at the Trump Hotel in D.C., the D.C. power brokers who would be there, the conversations that would take place in the lobby, they should, and if they don't, shame on them for not doing their jobs correctly. I would not be surprised at all if sometime in the future we did learn that had been the case. But no, there hasn't been any proof of that yet.
I do want to flash back to his presidency. His White House did try to prevent employers from relying on foreign workers, but it did so by targeting permanent employees, not temporary ones. So was this strategic because his business was relying on temporary employees?
There might be other reasons for it, but sure. And that was something we saw really early on in the days of the Trump Hotel. The Seasonal Employers Alliance, I think the name was, but it's a trade group for people who rely on this short-term foreign work, came into D.C. to lobby. They stayed at the Trump Hotel, of course. And, they're a group that has their interests aligned with the president. So it's not too surprising. You'll hear this often called there's the H-2A visa, which is for short-term agriculture workers, and H-2B visa, which is for other companies. And you'd frequently hear if you look up those visas and see his stances on it, he was okay with it.
Well, thank you, Zach Everson.
My pleasure.